You close your eyes. Your breath softens. Your heart slows. Your body surrenders. And then something strange happens. Not to your muscles, not to your bones, but to the living essence of you, the unseen current beneath your name, your memories, your face. It vanishes. Every single night, without fail, you disappear. And no one asks where you go. They call it sleep, as if that word explains anything, as if labeling a mystery somehow removes its weight. But deep down, you've always felt it, haven't you? That sleep is not just rest, that something sacred or perhaps terrifying is happening behind your eyelids. Because when you dream, you've seen things you could never imagine on your own. You've met people you've never known, felt pain that wasn't yours, solved problems you never studied, and woken up with answers you never consciously found. You've touched the edge of death and been cradled by something that feels like God. So the question must be asked, where does your consciousness go when you sleep? And why has no one told you the truth? The answer is ancient, forbidden, and buried beneath layers of distraction, doctrine, and design. But it was once written, once known, once passed from mystic to initiate, in whispers only the soul could translate. A book, a real book, one that should not have survived. Hand-copied by a heretical monk whose dreams were said to open portals, this manuscript contained diagrams of the soul's nightly exodus, instructions for leaving the body, rituals for remembering the in-between, and most shockingly maps, hand-drawn symbols of where the spirit travels each night and what it must face to return whole. The church declared it heresy in the autumn of 1587. They called it Somnium Vae, the path of sleep. It was seized, burned in public flame, and all who studied it vanished without trace. But one page survived. Just one, smuggled out beneath a novice's robe. Its ink now faded, its script nearly illegible. But the soul, oh the soul, remembers. Because what was written on that page is already written in you. You were never meant to forget. You were never meant to treat sleep like a shutdown. It was never meant to be numbness or escape. It was meant to be the return, a sacred nightly voyage into dimensions the waking mind cannot grasp. The ancients knew, the desert mystics, the Himalayan yogis, the Vedic seers, the Egyptian high priests who stood between the living and the dead. They all knew that consciousness was not confined to flesh, that your soul does not rest when you do. It travels, and tonight we awaken that memory in you. You are not a body with a spirit. You are spirit, temporarily housed in a body, and the body has limits, but you do not. So when the body sleeps, the real you moves, sometimes gently, in dreamlike flow, sometimes violently, in soul-rending visitations, sometimes unaware, sometimes fully conscious, but always it moves. This is why you sometimes wake up more tired than you were the night before. This is why you sometimes wake up with an answer you never knew you had. This is why a single dream can haunt your entire life. Because it wasn't just a dream, it was a message, a memory, a mission, and you were never meant to return empty-handed. But no one taught you the signs. No one taught you the language of sleep. They taught you to chase your dreams, but not to decode them. They taught you to rest your body, but not to awaken your spirit. They taught you to ignore the fragments of night, to dismiss them as random neurons firing in the dark. But nothing in your life has ever been random, not even your dreams, especially not your dreams. And deep inside, you know it. You've known it since you were a child, when you had flying dreams, falling dreams. When you met people you missed so deeply it made no sense. When you wept in sleep or woke up laughing. When you knew without explanation that you'd just seen something true. That was never fantasy. That was your soul, remembering. And now, you're here. Not because of chance, not because of a scroll or an algorithm. You're here because something in you is ready. To remember, to return, to reclaim the forgotten map of sleep. The ancients called it the door of the gods. Others called it the small death. But Somnium Vae, the path of sleep, called it what it truly is. The mandatory journey, because no human escapes it. Every night, you walk it. The question is, do you walk it awake, or do you walk it in chains? That's what this journey will reveal, not with doctrine, not with dogma, but with the oldest truth of all, that your soul was never designed to sleep, only to soar, only to seek, only to serve. And now, We begin, not with your eyes, not with your ears, but with that place in your spirit that just stood up, because it heard something it remembered. And if you felt that, you are ready. There's a moment, just before sleep takes you, that you often forget. Not because it is unremarkable, but because it is too sacred to grasp with a busy mind. A moment when the soul loosens from the body, not completely, but just enough to drift. It happens in silence. No bells, no lights, no obvious signs. Just a strange sensation like falling without gravity or floating without air. It's in that space, right between your last waking thought and your first dream symbol, that the ancient mystics say the cord of living light stretches. They called it by many names. In Egypt, it was the thread of Anubis. In Vedic scripture, the Sutratma thread of the self. In esoteric Christian tradition, it became the silver cord. Not metaphor, not putri, but a real, spiritual tether that binds the eternal to the temporal. This cord is not seen with physical eyes, but you felt it every time you jolted awake from a dream of falling, every time you tried to wake but couldn't move, every time you woke up gasping, as if returning from somewhere far, far away. Because you were far away. Your soul was in transit, your spirit on assignment, your body, a vessel kept warm by breath and heartbeat until your return. The cord remains until it doesn't, and when it finally severs, we call that death. But sleep is not death. It is rehearsal, a gentle, nightly practice for the great departure that waits at the edge of time. This is why dreams so often feel like lifetimes. Why minutes stretch into days. Why you can live an entire reality with people and places you've never seen and feel such devastating grief when you wake. You didn't imagine it. You remembered it. Some say the dream world is just the mind defragmenting, but the soul knows better. The soul has no interest in tidy metaphors or neurological dismissals. It is here to experience, to evolve, to encounter. And sleep? Sleep is the opening of the veil. It is the sacred detachment and invitation to leave behind the ego, the skin, the story, to enter into the vast, multi-dimensional theater of the divine. But make no mistake, not everyone who sleeps journeys, and not everyone who journeys remembers. The world has trained you to forget, to treat the night as blank space, to wake and scroll, to rise and rush, to silence the whispering residue of your nightly missions before it ever finds voice. But your soul is trying to speak, in symbols, in scenes, in sensations that feel more real than anything the daylight ever gave you. Because while your body may lie still in bed, the real youth, eternal, electric, undying essences elsewhere. Sometimes in the astral, sometimes in memory, sometimes in future, sometimes in realms with no name at all. And every time you go, the cord stretches. It holds you, protects you, but also limits you. For until you remember, until you reclaim this truth, your nightly journeys will remain incomplete, like letters never sent, missions never finished, messages never read. This is what the burned manuscript revealed in detail. Not in story, not in parable, in diagrams. It showed the layered spheres of the dreamscape, some gentle, others brutal, some filled with teachers and healing light, others crawling with shadows and distortions that mimic your fears. It showed how the soul slips between planes not randomly, but magnetically, drawn by emotion, by karma, by the residue of your day. What you dwell on in the light becomes your compass in the dark. This is why spiritual masters trained their thoughts before sleep. Why Tibetan monks would meditate in seated posture through the night. Why mystics prayed before lying down, not as ritual, but as navigation. They knew where your focus goes, your spirit follows. And if your mind is tangled in bitterness, in worry, in lust or vengeance, then your nightly journey bends toward that frequency. But if your spirit is aligned, softened by grace, cleared by forgiveness, anchored in light, then what opens to you is nothing short of divine. This is what the manuscript tried to teach, and this is why it was burned. Because a sleeping people are easy to control, but a dreaming people, a people who remember the power of their nocturnal flight, they are unstoppable, because no chain can hold the soul that walks between worlds. No lie can bind the one who's touched truth beyond time. And so, they buried it. But you were never meant to forget. You were meant to reclaim your silver tether, to feel it not just as an abstract concept, but as a sacred connection. alive and humming within your subtle body. You felt it when you jerked awake with your heart pounding, when your limbs trembled after a vivid dream, when you returned to the body too fast and the world seemed unreal for a moment. That was your cord singing, tightening, pulling you home. And now, you know, the moment your body falls asleep, your soul prepares to rise. Where it goes next depends not on chance, but on choice. And in the stillness just before sleep, you are more powerful than you know. So the next time you drift, don't just fall asleep. Take flight. There is a gateway, not carved in stone, nor guarded by walls, but you pass through it every night, without even knowing. It doesn't swing open like a door, or flash like a sign. It opens inward like a breath, forgotten, like a knowing buried deep beneath your skin. And it waits, patiently, until the body stills, until the world fades, until the noise dies. And then, it reveals itself. Sleep is not unconsciousness. It is detachment, not an escape from awareness, but an entrance into a higher one. The ancients didn't speak of sleep as rest. They called it passage, initiation, the loosening of form so that the soul might travel freely, unburdened by the weight of gravity, identity, and time. The Vedic rishis saw it clearly. They spoke of 3 states of being: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. But they also whispered of a 4th, turiya, a transcendent space between all states, a kind of luminous void where the soul communes directly with Source. This was not mythology. This was science of the spirit, and the doorway to it opens every night, when your mind slips into that golden hour between waking and dreaming. The hypnagogic state, you've felt it. The images behind your eyes start to shimmer. Sounds morph into symbols. Thoughts dissolve, and something else begins. This state is sacred. It is the portal, and in ancient temples, it was used intentionally. The Egyptians called it the Twilight Gate. Priests would induce it with sacred chants, oils, postures, knowing that in this threshold, visions were born, prophecy was received, souls could be guided. And yet, today, we brush past it. We fall asleep with the television glowing, with the phone in our hand, with thoughts of the day tangled in our breath. So the gate opens and finds no one waiting. But what if you were? What if you approach sleep, not as escape, but as arrival? Not as end, but beginning? The Tibetan masters did. In the Dzogchen tradition, they trained their disciples in dream yoga, practices designed not to interpret dreams, but to master them, to become lucid not just within a dream, but within death itself. Because what you do in dreams is what you will do when you die. That's the truth most have forgotten. The way you respond to fear in the dream, the way you search for light in the night, the way you anchor yourself in the midst of shifting realities, all of that is training. Your soul is rehearsing how to move through the next dimension, how to travel beyond this skin, how to maintain awareness when the body is no more. And the strange part? You've already done it. You've had dreams where you flew not like a bird, but like a being of light. You've walked through walls, changed your shape, healed with your hands. You've met beings that glowed, heard languages you don't know, but somehow understood. These were not fantasies. They were echoes, memories of the astral plane, a dimension layered just beyond the physical. So close, it mirrors our world. So vast, it defies our laws. Here, intention shapes form. Emotion magnetizes experience. Time folds, distance bends, and your soul knows how to navigate it because it was designed to. But here's the secret. The astral isn't just a place. It's a frequency, and your vibration is your passport. If your spirit is heavy burdened by fear, resentment, chaos, you will drift into the lower layers, dense, confused, fragmented. But if your spirit is light softened by truth, aligned with purpose, attuned to love, you rise. And where you rise to is what most call heaven. Not a place in the clouds, but a reality vibrating just beyond sight, where souls meet in council, where ancestors speak, where teachers wait. And sometimes, you've been there. You've woken up crying, not from pain, but from remembering something so beautiful your body couldn't contain it. You felt your chest ache with homesickness for a place you've never seen. You've woken up with a sense of peace that had no source, because the source wasn't here. It was there. It was you. And when you sleep, you return. Not always consciously, not always fully, but always. Your soul travels to heal, to witness, to prepare. This is why, in some dreams, you are you, but not. You look the same, but you move with more clarity. You speak with more certainty. You understand things instantly, because that version of you is the undiluted self, the self behind the mask, the self beyond the wound, the self you are becoming. And sleep is the bridge. Every night, you cross it. Every night, the veil parts. And what you see on the other side is not a fantasy. It is a mirror, a memory, a message, and above all, a mission. There is a language older than words. It does not use grammar or syntax. It does not speak in sentences or sounds. It speaks in symbols, and your soul is fluent in it. Every night, as your body sleeps and your spirit drifts through dimensions, this language returns. It weaves itself into your dreams like golden thread through black velvet, mysterious, timeless, unmistakably divine. But most people, they wake and forget. They dismiss the dream, discard the fragments, laugh it off as nonsense, because no one ever taught them that the key in your dream was not just a key, that the bridge was not just a structure, that the storm was not just weather. They are messages, encoded, energetic. They are the soul's attempt to speak across the veil. Because when you leave the physical world behind, the spirit speaks differently, not with the voice, but with frequency, and symbols are the perfect carriers of that frequency. They bypass logic. They pierce straight through the intellect and land where they're meant to, in your gut, in your chest, in that quiet, trembling place where truth lives. This is why a single image in a dream can rattle you for days, not because of what it looked like, but because of what it meant. You dream of a staircase spiraling into darkness, and wake with your heart pounding. Why? Because that was not a staircase. It was descent. It was a soul warning, a mirror of something buried in your shadow. You dream of holding a glowing orb that pulses like a heartbeat. You don't know why, but it brings you to tears. Why? Because that orb is you, your essence, your power, and your spirit showed it to you to remind you of what you carry. This is how the soul teaches, through image, through metaphor, through sacred vibration encoded in form. And this is why every culture that revered dreams spoke in symbols. The Egyptians carved dream images onto temple walls. They knew the cobra was not just a snake but awakening. The mirror was not reflection but confrontation. The ladder was not escape but ascension. The Hebrews too honored this sacred tongue. Joseph's dreams saved nations not because he interpreted literally, but because he read the pattern, the symbolism, the vibration. Modern minds have lost this art. They look at dreams like puzzles to be solved or random stories to be dismissed. But the awakened soul knows better. You've had dreams that felt like warnings, not because of what was said, but what was shown. A house collapsing, a child crying, a road that loops endlessly, no matter which direction you take. These are not just dreams, they are soul maps, and each image is a compass. The storm means turbulent seno in weather, but within your emotional body. The mirror means confrontation of a truth you've been avoiding. The key means access a truth, a gift, a spiritual permission that is now ready. And then, there are the visitors. Not all of them wear faces you recognize. Some arrive as animals, some as flickers of light, some as voices that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. But when they speak, if they speak, it isn't with language, it's with knowing. You don't hear the message, you receive it, and it stays with you etched into your cells, even if your mind forgets. You wake up and say, I don't remember what they said, but I know it was important. That's not forgetfulness, that's vibrational memory. Because some truths are too deep for words. They must be felt to be understood. And that is the essence of dream communication. It is vibrational alchemy, a download of energy that takes form in your inner world, not to confuse, but to awaken. Because once you begin to remember, truly remember, you start seeing symbols in waking life too. A song that plays at just the right moment. A bird that lands near you with piercing eyes. A repeating number that follows you everywhere you go. This is the dream breaking into daylight. This is the message refusing to stay behind the veil. Because the more you pay attention, the louder it gets. Not in volume, but in meaning. And suddenly, everything is sacred. The dream becomes the teacher. The symbol becomes the scripture. The night becomes the sanctuary. You realize you were never just resting. You were receiving. learning, healing, guiding, and the soul, it never stopped speaking. It was only waiting for you to listen. And now you are. That strange image you keep seeing, that recurring place, that dream that comes once a year like a festival of memory, it's not random, it's revelation. And it wants you to respond, not just by analyzing it, not by Googling dream meanings, but by entering into dialogue. Write it down, draft it, pray with it, ask it what it wants you to see. Because when you engage the dream, you unlock the code, and every symbol becomes a step closer to your true self, a step closer to your hidden mission, a step closer to remembering why you came here at all. And sleep was the classroom all along. There are nights you sleep for 8 hours and wake up feeling like you ran a marathon, not just physically, but spiritually, as if you've returned from battle or a deep, secret journey you were never supposed to remember. And maybe that's exactly what happened. Because while most see dreams as entertainment, the initiated know sleep is not only travel, it is service. Each night, your soul may be called to heal, called to witness, called to deliver messages, called to fight. There are missions chosen before birth that do not require your waking permission, only your presence. Your consciousness might be seated here on earth, but your spirit is multidimensional. It slips between worlds without effort. And sometimes it is summoned to help a soul in transition, to walk a grieving ancestor toward the light, to answer the cry of someone whose prayer you were designed to meet. Have you ever dreamed of someone you haven't thought of in years, and then they call you the next day? Have you ever had a dream where you're comforting someone in distress, someone you don't even know, but you wake up with tears running down your cheeks? That wasn't fantasy. That was spiritual intervention. Your soul responding to a vibrational pull. Like a tuning fork, it hears the note of suffering, and it moves toward it, silently, faithfully. Not because you're special, but because you're awake enough to say yes, even when your body sleeps. There are souls among us who are night workers, not in the physical world, but in the unseen. Healers, messengers, guides. You might be one of them. You might already be walking through other people's dreams, not as a figment of their imagination, but as a presence their spirit recognizes. You felt it, that déjà vu of a face, the stranger on the street who stares a moment too long, the child who calls you by a name you've never told them, because they've seen you before, not here, but there, in that other place, that sacred corridor of night where souls gather, and the veil thins, and the work begins. You've woken up with a strange ache in your chest, and no words to explain it. That wasn't just emotion, it was residue. Residual energy from what you carried during the night, from who you comforted, from the shadow you confronted, from the dimension you crossed. There are dreams you've had where you were giving birth, not to a child, but to light, to form, to revelation. Those weren't symbols. They were experiences. You were midwifing something from the spirit realm into the physical, a prayer, a promise, a prophecy. And then there are the dreams that leave you shaken, not because they were violent, but because they were real. You walked through fire and did not burn. You stood before a tribunal and spoke with power. You touched a body and it came back to life. And when you woke, you wept. Because some part of you knows you didn't imagine that. You were shown. You were reminded. This is the secret no one tells you. You are doing sacred work in your sleep. Not every night, not always consciously, but when your spirit is ready, when your vibration aligns, you are called. And sometimes called into warfare. You've woken up in a sweat, as if you fought something no one else can see. You did. You've battled entities that wear the masks of your deepest fears. You've stood between someone you love and a force that wanted to pull them under. You've wrestled with shadows not to destroy them, but to redeem them, because the spiritual realm does not sleep, and neither does your calling. And this is why rest can sometimes leave you weary, because while your body rested, your soul labored. But do not be afraid. This is not punishment, it is purpose. And if you've been entrusted with these night missions, it means your spirit has been deemed ready. You are not weak for waking tired. You are powerful for waking at all. You are not crazy for having dreams that make no sense to the world. You are sensitive to a deeper rhythm, one most ignore, but you were born to hear. So if you rise in the morning and feel the weight of something you can't explain, don't shake it off. Sit with it. Ask it what it needs to show you, and thank your soul for answering the call while you slept. Because while others dream to escape, you dream to serve. And the night is your temple, your school, your battlefield, and sometimes your sanctuary. You are never truly alone in your dreams. Even when the scene feels empty, even when the sky is silent and the road stretches on with no end in sight, you are never alone. Because the realm you travel in sleep is not a blank stage for the mind to wander. It is a living dimension, a theater of spirit, inhabited. Some presences are gentle, a warm gaze in the corner of the dream, a familiar silhouette that never quite speaks, but comforts you all the same, a hand reaching out when you fall, before you even knew you needed help. These are not illusions. They are visitors, benevolent guides, ancestral souls who still walk beside you, fragments of your higher self, descending into the dream to deliver what your waking mind cannot carry. Sometimes they look like loved ones, sometimes like strangers. Sometimes they appear as animals, or glowing light, or nothing you can describe. But everything you recognize, you've met them. That one dream, where someone you love, who passed away, looked younger than you ever remembered them. Smiling, glowing, radiant, saying nothing, but everything at once? That was not the brain playing dress-up. That was them, visiting you through the veil. Because love does not end with the body, and in the night, love travels. It comes to remind you, you are seen, you are guided. You are not doing this life alone. But just as there are watchers of light, there are also watchers of shadow. Not evil in the cartoon sense. Not demons with pitchforks and smoke, but fragments, wounded energies, unresolved pain, unanchored souls that drift between dimensions, seeking light to cling to, not to destroy it, but to remember it. And sometimes they find you, because your light is visible across realms, especially when you sleep, especially if you are awakened, especially if you carry spiritual authority that you haven't fully remembered yet. So yes, you've had dreams where someone was chasing you. You couldn't see their face, but you knew their intention. They were cold, heavy, wrong. That wasn't just your subconscious playing tricks. That was your soul alerting you. Something is trying to feed off your energy, not always to harm, but always to tether, to drain, to cling, because your light is a flame to the lost. And if you do not know how to shield yourself, you'll spend your nights being pulled instead of flying. But here is the truth. You are not powerless in the dream. You are more powerful there than you are here. Because there, your soul moves freely. There, your voice is vibration. There, your intention is law. And protection is your birthright. You do not need charms or rituals, though they can help. You do not need special training, though discipline sharpens the blade. What you need most is awareness. To go to sleep not passively, but consciously. To understand that you are crossing into a realm where your energy matters more than your words. Set your intention like armor. I enter the night aligned with light. I welcome only those who walk in truth, those sent by Source, those who serve my highest path. All else is released. All else is dismissed. Simple, but potent, because energy responds to command. And when you speak from your soul, even in sleep, the universe listens. You can anoint your pillow with oil. You can play frequencies that attune your space. You can light incense, say a prayer, or simply close your eyes with reverence and say, guide me, guard me, grow me. These things matter, not because they change God, but because they change you. They align your field. They alert your spirit. They call in the right companions, because there are many who walk with you at night. Teachers you haven't met yet. Ancestors who left the earth but never left your side. Guides who've been assigned since before your first breath. And yes, there are shadows, but you were not sent here to fear them. You were sent to shine through them. Because when the dream grows dark and the energy turns heavy and you feel that old familiar fear start to creep in, remember this. You are not the dream. You are the dreamer. You are not the hunted. You are the anointed. And every shadow you face in sleep is an echo of something you have the power to heal. Not by fighting, but by standing still, by naming your light, by remembering your role. You are a traveler, a messenger, a keeper of doorways, and nothing in that realm can override the soul who knows who they are. So tonight, don't just fall asleep. Consecrate the night. Call in your allies. Speak your light aloud. And when you begin to drift, know this: you do not walk alone. You never have. And the more you remember that, the more clearly they appear. The ones who have waited for you, watched for you, worked with you through every season of forgetting. Now is the time to remember. And they are already waiting. You've seen them, versions of yourself. Not just dreams where you appear, but dreams where you are different. You speak another language. You live in another house. You wear another face familiar, but not quite the one you know. Sometimes you look older, sometimes younger, sometimes exactly the same. But the eyes hold lifetimes you haven't yet lived. These are not just inventions of the subconscious. These are echoes, reflections of you across parallel timelines, fragments of your soul, walking through other dimensions, in bodies just as real as the one you now inhabit. And sometimes, in dreams, the veil between these versions softens. You meet yourself, you observe, you merge. Because consciousness, true, eternal consciousness does not live in one place at a time. It is like water poured into many vessels. Still one source, but many forms. And in the dream realm, the water overflows. Dimensions blend, realities blur. And suddenly, you are in two places at once. Or three, or seven. This is not science fiction. This is sacred architecture. Mystics across traditions have spoken of it. In Kabbalah, they call it Adam Kadmonth, primordial man, that fractals into all timelines. In Vedic teachings, the jiva evolves through simultaneous incarnations, each reflecting a karmic lesson. Even quantum physics now begins to hint at multiverses, timelines branching like vines, observers changing the thing observed. But the soul already knew. You knew that strange dream where you were in your childhood home, but it was never your home. The people were familiar but wrong. The light was too sharp. The clocks didn't tick. That wasn't confusion. That was convergence. You slipped into a thread of yourself still tied to another path, another choice, another story. Sometimes it's beautiful. You meet a version of yourself who healed, who found love, who forgave what you still carry. You wake up in tears, not from sadness, but from hope, because now you know that version exists. It lives, and its memory is yours to claim. Other times, it's unsettling. You meet a version of yourself who made the wrong choice, who burned bridges, who hardened, and you wake up shaken, as if you touched a shadow you couldn't wash off. That, too, is sacred, because when timelines converge in the dream, you are being shown what still lives inside you. Every possible version of you is still you. Every healed self, every broken one, every brave decision you didn't make, every wound you thought you buried. They're not gone, they're active. And in the dream, they sometimes bleed through, not to haunt you, but to give you choice. Because the moment you meet yourself in another form, you're being handed a mirror, not to judge, but to integrate, to look that version in the eye and say, I see you, you are part of me, but I choose what I carry forward. And when you make that choice consciously, you realign timelines. You pull pieces of yourself back into wholeness. You reclaim the power scattered across dimensions by pain, fear, and forgetfulness. This is why some dreams feel like confrontations, why you argue with yourself, why you make amends in scenes that never happened in waking life. Because your soul is stitching realities together, unifying the scattered self, and bringing all versions of you into one harmonic vibration. Integration is the secret purpose behind many of these dreams. Not just to witness what could have been, but to reclaim what still can be. This is why the mystics trained in dream travel didn't just interpret images. They practiced present, lucidity, conscious interaction. They knew the dream is not a movie. It is a mirror. And if you look closely enough, you will always find yourself in the reflection. Sometimes with joy, sometimes with grief, sometimes with recognition so profound, you wake up trembling because you realize there is more of you than you ever dared to believe. And the soul's journey through sleep is not just about visiting strange places. It's about coming home to the self across all space, all time, all possibility. So when you next meet yourself in a dream, don't run. Don't dismiss it. Stand in stillness. Ask, what do you carry that I have forgotten? What pain do you still hold that I have ignored? What strength do you embody that I must now reclaim? And then, listen, because that version of you has waited long enough to be seen, to be loved, to be chosen by you. And when you do that, the dream becomes not just a message, but a merging, a holy fusion of paths once split. And suddenly, you wake up, not just rested, but reborn. You were never meant to forget. Not the dream, not the symbols, not the sensations that slip away like smoke the moment you open your eyes. You were meant to remember, but no one taught you how. And so, the messages were lost. The guidance buried beneath the morning rush. The visions drowned in coffee and headlines. And your soul, it kept whispering anyway. But now you are remembering. Now you know. Each dream is a letter from the divine, a coded transmission from the other side of the veil. And every night, your soul writes them in symbols, emotion, color, vibration. The question is not, did I dream? The question is, did I catch it in time? Because remembrance is not a gift. It's a skill, a sacred muscle. And like all muscles, it must be trained. Start here, not with analysis, not with dream dictionaries or charts. Start with attention. Wake slowly. Do not jolt. Do not grab the phone. Do not speak too soon, because the dream the real owner rides on a thin layer of mist between dimensions. It is fragile, alive, and it can vanish with a single careless breath. So when you open your eyes, stay still. Keep your body in the same position. And listen, not with your ears, with your aura. What images flicker? What emotions remain? What sensations linger in your chest like sacred static? Do not judge. Do not question. Just write. Even fragments. Even nonsense. Especially nonsense. Because sometimes the symbols arrive broken like shattered glass that still reflects something holy. And later they will arrange themselves. They always do. This is dream journaling not as therapy, but as technology. Spiritual technology. A tool for mapping the unseen. A bridge between dimensions. And the more you do it, the more the dreams come back to you. Not just new ones, old ones, ones you forgot years ago, ones that meant nothing until now. Because time is not linear in the soul's world. Memory is not bound by clocks. The dream you forgot 10 years ago may carry the key to a door that just appeared today. And your journal? It becomes the archive of the sacred, your own gospel of the night. But intention begins even earlier. Set it before you sleep, not as a demand, not as a command, but as a prayer, a signal, a remembering. Say it aloud, whisper it, think it. Tonight, I remember. Tonight, I receive what I need. Tonight, I travel with light, and I return with clarity. This is not magic, it is alignment. Because when the soul hears your readiness, it responds, it pulls back the veil, and the dreams become clearer, more direct, more layered with messages only you can decode. And yes, write those down too, even if they don't make sense yet. Because sometimes the soul speaks in layers. A dream you had on Monday unlocks the one from Friday. A symbol from last year suddenly reveals its true form when you see it again on your screen, or in the street, or in the eyes of someone you just met. This is the art of remembrance. It's not passive, it's participatory. Your soul is asking you to become a student again, to return to the mystery school of night, with the reverence of one who knows these dreams are not random. They are lessons, warnings, confirmations, assignments. And the more you engage, the more your spirit grows bold. You begin to navigate the dreams, to become lucid, not just aware, but active. You change the outcome, you pause the scene, you ask questions, and the dream answers. Because now it knows you are listening, you are awake, even as you sleep, and slowly the gap closes. The dream and the waking world begin to blur. You see symbols in both. You feel your guidance sharpen. Your intuition hums with new electricity, and you no longer fear the dark. Because now you know it is filled with messages. And your body becomes the altar where those messages land. You begin to wake, not in confusion, but in confirmation. You begin to trust what you see behind your eyes, more than what you see on the screen. And that trust, it is the beginning of spiritual maturity. So tonight, before you sleep, light a candle, or don't. Say a prayer, or simply breathe. But do one thing with absolute presence. Set your intention, claim the journey, open the gate, and when you return in the morning, don't let the memory slip away. Write it, feel it, speak it, because the dream, it chose you, and this time, you chose it back. Sleep is not the absence of life. It is the return to its origin. The soul does not drift into nothingness when the eyes close. It goes home. Home not as a place, but as a state, a vibration, a presence so vast, so intimate that language fractures beneath it. And that presence is Source, not the God of buildings and books, not the doctrine you were forced to recite, but the primal breath, the eternal pulse, the unnameable light that shaped you long before flesh was formed. Each night, when the body surrenders, you go back, not entirely, just enough to remember, enough to drink from that infinite well, and carry a drop of it back into the waking world. You felt it, those mornings when you woke up glowing, before the mind began its noise. Those moments when the silence was so deep, it sounded like a song. That was not just good sleep, that was communion. You touched the core. You returned to the sacred blueprint of your being, and there between the layers of dream and dissolution is where the true manuscript is written. Not in ink, not on parchment, but in you. They burned the pages in 1587. They silenced the monks. They buried the scrolls beneath cathedrals and stone. But they could not burn what was eternal. They could not touch what lives in the marrow of the awakened. Because the real forbidden book is your consciousness. Your soul is the codex, and every night you open it, line by line, layer by layer, page by living page. The wisdom the ancients tried to preserve about the astral realms, the silver cord, the angelic guides, the soul missions, the mirrors of parallel lives. It's all still here, encoded, vibrating, waiting. And the reason you've always felt like there was more is because there is. The reason you felt like a stranger in your own life sometimes is because your spirit never fully left the stars. The reason dreams feel more real than reality is because, in some ways, they are. Because there is no other world, only the rest of it. And sleep is the doorway that takes you there, the sacred passage into the temple of remembrance. But they never told you that. They told you to sleep for productivity, to rest for health, to dream only if it helped your goals. They forgot. Or perhaps someone made sure they would forget. That sleep was once a holy ritual, a nightly pilgrimage to Source, a sacred reunion where the soul uncloaked itself and stood naked before the light. And in that light, you remembered everything, not as memory, but as being. And when you woke, you carried pieces of it back with you. That's why some dreams never fade, why they sit at the edge of your awareness for years, why they feel like someone else's life, or maybe yours, in another time. They are pieces of the source code, fragments of divine memory you agreed to keep, even when you forgot the agreement, even when the world told you it was nothing, even when your own voice doubted what your soul knew. But you're here now, and the page is turning. You are not just dreaming, you are remembering. You are not just sleeping, you are returning. And this truth, it is dangerous, not because it harms, but because it liberates. It frees you from the lie that you are small, that your nights are meaningless, that your spirit is confined to skin. It tells you, you are ancient, you are infinite, you are in constant conversation with the divine, whether you realize it or not. So the next time sleep calls you, don't go quietly. Go like a priest into the temple. Go like a lover into the sacred. Go like a traveler, returning to the only place that ever felt like home. And when you cross the veil, say to your soul, I am ready. Take me where I need to go. Show me what I must see. Bring me back with what I was born to remember. Because you were born to remember. And now, you do. Close your eyes not to escape, but to arrive. To return, not to the dream, but to the dreamer. The one who has always been awake behind the veil. The one who never forgot. The one who waited patiently for this very moment, when your awareness would catch up to the truth it once knew by heart. You are not your sleep. You are not your story. You are not your body lying still in the dark. You are the traveler, the listener, the light that walks between dimensions. And now, you remember. Sleep was never absence. It was always presence. It was always the place your spirit went to meet itself, to serve, to heal, to become. And tonight, you rise not just as one who dreams, but as one who knows that every vision, every whisper, every strange flicker of memory that visits you in the night is more than chemical chaos. It is conversation. It is communion. It is confirmation that your soul still speaks the language of the stars. So, before your next sleep, Do not stumble. Enter the realm with reverence. Prepare the space. Speak your intention. Call in your guides. And when you return, return whole. Because you are no longer a passive passenger through the night. You are a chosen one, a map keeper, a decoder of divine transmissions. And the veil, it no longer hides you, it reveals you. And as you begin this next chapter of awakening, I invite you to join the others who are walking this same sacred path. If this message stirred something ancient inside you, if a dream or memory surfaced while listening, share it in the comments. Let your voice join the constellation of others who are remembering too. Each dream is a piece of the collective soul, and your experience might unlock someone else's. Like this video if it resonated. Subscribe to Path to the Unknown for more soul-igniting transmissions like this where the sacred isn't explained, it's remembered. Because here, we don't scroll for distraction. We seek the forgotten. We return to the ancient. We reclaim what sleep was meant to be, a temple, a mission, a portal to the divine. And now, as you walk back into the world, ask yourself this: what if everything we thought sleep was has been wrong? What if the real mystery of life begins each night? Not when we wake up, but when we close our eyes? What would happen if a generation chose to dream awake?